Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro. I moved the camera this week because I couldn't see the chat last week where it was, and now I can't find my tabs because it's covering the tabs. Where are my tabs gone? There's the tab. We're live, pal. We're live on the YouTube. I think I'm live anyway. It's saying live, excellent condition. Bumper show today reviewing 2 pay-per-views plus something a little bit extra special. Total Extreme Morrow went out last week on a Wednesday. Views were good. Retention was excellent. I love that retention. The only reason I love the retention so much is because the retention has a higher retention rate than our main pod. Actually, Shane, would you believe, a higher retention rate than the main pod? Much lower viewership. Hello, Mr. David. Much lower viewership, but much higher retention. And look, when it comes to metrics and so on, it's the retention is all that matters. Let's be honest with ourselves. Loads of wrestling show fan interaction today. Mainly in response to the various pay-per-views that were, or PLEs that were on offer over the weekend. How's the sound? I've upped the sound because Shane keeps pissing and moaning about the sound. The sound. Oh, I can't hear you in the car. Maybe get your engine checked, Shane. Maybe put some engine oil in there. Maybe put some petrol in your car. I know Shane isn't here. That's why I'm going so hard on him. Shane is currently watching AEW All Out, only 48 hours after it aired. In fairness, he was at the OTT touring shows all weekend, supporting his friend Frankie. Sounds good, looking good so far. Thanks, Ush. Thanks, David. Sound is good. Definitely not whispering, Mr. Snrub. Not whispering. No, I'm jacked up. I watched a lot of wrestling. There was a lot of wrestling on this weekend. I spent a fortune on Thriller. I paid for the double. AEW were doing a double offer on All Out and Wrestle Dream. I think that's next month. I actually think it's clashing with OTT 11th anniversary, of which I'm going to that. When 4 people are watching, they are diehards. Shane is here. Ugh. There's 8 actually. Shane, I'll have you know. So yeah, Shane, how was OTT this weekend? Lots of wrestling. Oshin Max says today, WWE are doing what was once AEW's biggest downfall, focusing too much on the other company. Yeah, if we jump back to 2023, what are the parameters for the sound? The parameters for the sound, Ronan, are be louder. Be louder, I think. I think that's the only parameters. We have an issue on the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show of setting parameters in general. We just don't fucking do it, and we come up with a concept for a podcast, and we show up with no parameters, and then we shout at each other for somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes, and then we go home saying, I think that went well. But people seem to continue to watch. I agree with Joshine. Like, if you jump back to 2023, WWE was red hot, and AEW went down this kind of path of, I don't want to say copying them, but in a sense, like trying to almost mimic the style of a WWE show, and it didn't work. And now what we're getting is WWE aren't mimicking AEW style, but they're trying to counter program all over the map. I think that's something we should get into today, because I think that played a big part on what we'll call the perception war of the weekend. Neil says WWE is dead. Long live AEW. Shows were worlds apart in quality. AEW or WWE will never die. Unfortunately, I don't want them to die. I just want them to be better. But yeah, I will get into that. But I agree that the shows were worlds apart in quality. Ronan says this popped me earlier when I saw it come in. Jay giving himself a concussion with a chair shot sums up the WWE right now. It really fucking does. It really does. Like, oh, that match was. Because so the order in which I watched WWE show was out of order because obviously the Cena Lesnar match took place during the Hangman Fletcher match, and at that stage I was deep into the Hangman Fletcher match. I wasn't. There's no way I was flicking over. So the first thing I saw when I flicked over was that tag match between the Bronze and the Usos, and like within like 5 minutes of me turning it on, Jey Uso concusses himself by hitting someone else with a chair. Hilarious stuff. D. Meehan says WrestlePalooza sucked balls. That is all. Mark Dowd says All Out wiped the floor with WrestlePalooza. This popped me as well. The Snowman wins again. Also heel Morrow for the win. Love it, Mark. The Rattenberry says great AEW pay-per-view. Nearly got whiplash going from that to WWE. Yeah, it's serious whiplash. Like it's like oh, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. There's a couple of more here. Shane send me more nonsense. Jamie B, in your opinion, what is the perfect amount of matches segments in a pay-per-view? That's a hard one. Like when the main pod was doing the reviews last year, and we'd like review I think basically every pay-per-view slash PLE of 2024, most of them anyway. Me and Shane kept having these arguments about that very question. What's the kind of optimum number of matches for a pay-per-view slash time, so on? And it was this kind of battle between WWE having like 5 matches that are really massively spaced out with really long entrances, loads of ads in between, and you're sitting there like, just get on with it, versus AEW where it's just coming thick and fast, and sometimes there's 10. If you watch the pre-show, there might be 13 matches on a card, and you're like, whoa, I can't process all this. And like, what's the happy medium? I always thought somewhere around main card of like 8 matches given time, and I don't think you need really any breaks in between them. Like New Japan are brilliant at just kind of constant escalation. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I would think somewhere like 8 or 9, depending on the match types and styles. I don't think you need. My personal take on segments as such or angles at pay per views, like you don't need more than 3, really. Mr. Snrub says WrestlePalooza was arse. I've seen better shows than Sunday Night Heat on Channel 4 in 2000. Hey, those Sunday Night Heat shows, sometimes they were awesome. Used to love watching them. Used to love watching the Sunday Night Heats before the pay-per-view would start. That was a great old time when it was on Channel 4. Although it was the first time I was really confronted with watching wrestling with pay-per-view wrestling with loads of ads in it. Didn't enjoy that now. I remember, I think it was Royal Rumble 2000. Was that the first pay-per-view that was shown on Channel 4? And I think they went for ads during the Royal Rumble match on Channel 4. Now, I might be misremembering that part, but I remember thinking the amount of ads is really annoying compared to what we had been previously getting on Sky Sports. I think Sky did do some ads, but it didn't seem as intrusive as the Channel 4 ones. Let's just get into it. I'm going to start with the special thing because I think this this match from CMLL Arena Mexico 92nd anniversary. Imagine that. Mr. Snub doesn't remember the ads. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I definitely remember ads. Maybe I'm misremembering how intrusive the ads were in comparison to Sky Sports. CMLL Arena Mexico 92-year anniversary, 92nd anniversary show took place on a Friday night. It's weird. It'd be like if WWE were running pay-per-views in the Raw time slot, is basically essentially how they do it. Oshin Max says, this is what we're getting to here. All in all, the real MVP of the weekend is MJF. 100%. That guy had a career, like a legacy-defining weekend. But this kind of, I think, brings up a bigger point. So the MJF Mystico match from Friday night in Arena Mexico, MJF's CMLL light heavyweight title versus Mystico's match was like almost a perfection of the art of professional wrestling. And the match itself wasn't complicated. It was by no means the match that featured the best wrestling of the weekend, although it might have featured the best selling. But it was like the perfect professional wrestling match. And I think the reason for that was the crowd so earnestly engaged with the match, in the sense that it felt like, the stakes were there, the emotion was there. And I can't remember on that level the last time a North American crowd from any company were that invested in the outcome of a match, to the point where the crowd were like almost like a third character within the drama. It was just the perfect encapsulation of what wrestling can be. And you get this in Japan sometimes. It's been a few years. Like, if you go back to those Okada title defenses, where the crowd, like, there's people crying in the crowd. I just think, I don't know, have North American crowds, and you sometimes you get it when WWE or AEW come to England or France. Well, the France one recently was a bit of a shit show, in my opinion, crowd-wise. But you get this much more earnest reaction from the crowd, or earnest interaction from the crowd when it comes to the match. And the MJF Mystical match just turned into something so special, because the crowd bit on every bit of MJF's heel work. And the crowd just went crazy for every bit of Mystico's babyface comebacks. And it just created this dynamic that feels so unique in what we watch in modern wrestling. A babyface with that crowd connection. And I think it kind of solidifies Mystico as like wrestling's MVP this year. There's nobody else selling arenas like him on a consistent basis, putting in these kind of babyface performances. It's going to be very hard to topple him in the remaining few months. I know there's other guys having great years. Like Cody's still doing good ticket wise, like his match quality. I didn't like the Drew match, spoiler alert. Bandito's putting in amazing in-ring performances, but maybe doesn't have the ticket sales to go along with it. Hangman kind of has the ticket sales, also has great in-ring performances. Moxley has ticket sales, pay-per-view buy rates, that kind of stuff. But I don't know if anyone has like the complete thing that Mystico now has, in terms of the guy's wrestling an insane schedule, putting on, like, he's not as dynamic a wrestler as he used to be, but he's still putting on high quality matches. But I would urge anybody, if you haven't seen this match, the rest of the show was so-so, to be perfectly honest. It's if you like Lucha Libre, you like some other stuff off the show. However, this match, honestly, this might be the best match of the year, not because of the in-ring action as such, but because of just everything surrounding it, with the crowd interaction, the crowd engagement, the levels of emotion on display, the risk at times that it felt like Mystico could lose his match, Mystico bleeding buckets and wiping blood out of his eyes to fight back against the American invading heel. It was Hogan reactions from the fucking 80s. We just don't get that anymore. It was an incredible piece of business. MJF played his part to utter perfection, and as did Mystico. And the MJF attacking him at the bell, before the match starts, the instant blood from Mystico, the tearing of the mask, the opening the mask to let the blood out. John Cruz in Mystico's corner playing, or in MJF's corner, playing a perfect heel manager. Templario in Mystico's corner playing the perfect babyface second, trying to will his man back into the match. Just the drama and the stakes kept escalating and escalating. And MJF ultimately does the job in a tremendous heel performance. But you can't, it wasn't just a tremendous MJF performance, it was also this tremendous Mystico performance. And these two things collided on one night to create absolute magic. And like, if you're comparing this to, I don't know, like what other matches did you think were great this year? Hangman versus Will Ospreay. That's probably the American match that I would hold in the highest regard. Um, Another one, like you go back to January and Tokyo Dome on January 5th this year with Gabe Kidd and Kenny Omega and the earnest crowd reaction from that as well. That's another one that you could put in this category that made Tanahashi fucking cry. Like he thought it was a work of art, obviously. Um, I know Gabe Kidd's stock has dramatically decreased since then, but you know that was this year and that is in with a shout of match of the year. But like you take the probably what I thought the two best wrestled matches this year were Bandido and Hechicero and also Bandido and Takeshita. Maybe, yeah, but they didn't have this crowd reaction. Hangman, Osprey, not this level of crowd reaction or like emotion. It's a must watch match because it was a throwback to like the shit we grew up with. The crowd reaction was like something you would see out of if you grew up watching Hulk Hogan or Bret Hart in the early 90s. It was like you were being transported to a different time and a different era of wrestling. And to pull it off in 2025 was just incredible. And it just goes to show that Mystico, the star he is, how the crowd in Mexico buy into him. Like, it's just a tremendous piece of wrestling, a work of art. And it should be, if anyone wants to be a professional wrestler in the future, watch this match. Watch what MJF did as a heel. How he was able to, like, it was probably MJF's greatest ever heel performance. Like, he's been in what would you would classify as technically better wrestling matches with Danielson in that incredible Iron Man match. Like, he's been in what are visually better matches, but I don't think anything had this level of emotion and stakes and all those great things that make wrestling so special at times. Perfect stuff. Let's get into the review of AEW's All Out. What I thought was an excellent show overall. What did you guys think of it? Did people think it got off to a slow start? I thought it kind of got off to a slow start. It was cool, like it was so cool at the start seeing Bubbles and the interactions. Now I did think it went maybe a little bit too long before the first match got to the ring. And then we had CNC or whatever they're calling them, Copeland and Christian Cage defeating FTR in around a 20-minute match. It was quite long. Now, this match was a weird one for me because I didn't think it was excellent. And this is a pay-per-view opener and it was the right call to open in Toronto with Christian and Copeland's first pay-per-view match there in 24 years, whatever they said it was. It was the right call to open with that and getting that. Well, I suppose Danielson stole the opening pop by coming out to do his commentary, of which he was absolutely tremendous. Boycott Activision. I'm with you on that. I'm a Call of Duty guy, and Activision are really pissed me off for about 5 years now. You appreciate the backstage stuff. Slow start to the MJF match, Dave. I thought really enjoyed the show. The Okada Trio was my favourite match. That was an excellent match. But yeah, like, it's weird because FTR have been doing unbelievable work on TV recently. Their matches with Adam Priest and Tommy Billington, like, were, in my opinion, head and shoulders above this match with Cope and Christian. But the match was designed really like a WWE match, not an AEW style match. It was kind of more highlighted around the big moments of Beth coming in and Cope kicking out of like 47 finishers. Wasn't 47, but you know what I mean. Christian getting wiped out and Cope having to do it alone type thing. I just thought they kind of got the match type wrong, considering what FDR have been doing recently. In terms of their TV matches have been like just top notch, like back to being the best tag team in the world territory. Um, and I just thought this one didn't hit any of those heights, and the structure of the match was structured like around the wrong things, and it like even the Copeland Christian match versus Luchasaurus and Kip Sabian at Forbidden Door, I thought had like a better structure to it. It wasn't as well wrestled. Like this was a match that was very well wrestled. But I thought the structure of the match against Kip Sabian and Luchasaurus, or Killswitch as he was at the time, was a better structure. And this to me wasn't quite there. And I was like, okay, I see why they opened the show with it, but it didn't hit those heights. Then you get Eddie Kingston and Big Bill. Well, obviously you get, the Beth Phoenix debut. I don't know what kind of role she's going to play on the roster. Will she be interacting with, like, it seemed like she was put straight in here, and I thought the angle after the match was excellent with FTR Spike pile driving Beth Phoenix while Corp is chained to the ropes. Brilliant stuff, like, and obviously they're setting up a big stipulation match, and I think these teams will have a great stipulation match. My only issue is sometimes when Copeland does stipulation matches, if we kind of go back to that Randy Orton one a few years ago, they tend to be a bit long and overdrawn. Ronan said it's mad that even though All Out had 4 lads in their 50s, the average age was younger than the Wrestlepalooza card. I'm just looking down it now. At 4 lads in their 50s. So you're looking at Bobby, MVP, Shelton, Copeland, and Christian. Is it 5? Or is Bobby only 49? It might be fucking 5, It might actually be 5. It depends off Bobby, because MVP and Shelton are 50. And Copeland and Christian, I think, are 50. And Bobby is either 49 or 50. And 4 or 5 lads in their 50s and had younger. That's just a problem in general with WWE. We get the Eddie Kingston return match. This match fell totally flat. Maybe Big Bill was the wrong choice. Eddie's matches can do this though. Even I love Eddie Kingston. I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's a brilliant character, exceptional on the mic. Again, a guy talking about, mentioned it with Mystico and creating this earnest thing. I think Eddie has that thing where he can create this natural emotional connection with the audience, with the crowd, with the fan base, whatever you want to call it. I just thought this, Bobby's 48, thanks Ron. Okay, so they had a guy who's 48 and 4 guys in their 50s, and I had a younger average age across the card than fucking Wrestlepalooza. And the French show, what was that called? Clash in Paris last month. I'm sure that was even a higher average age, because that card was old as shit. But yeah, Eddie and Big Bill fell a bit flat to me. Eddie's matches can do this. Sometimes, like, the finish obviously went totally wrong. They should have pivoted slightly and done the move again or whatever. It's the type of move where you can go, oh, he missed it, now he does it again, now he gets the pin. It wouldn't have, like, Eddie doesn't do these big complex finishes as such. I don't know if Big Bill was the right opponent for him coming back, but he's kind of, he's a more methodical worker, as they call it, a bit slower. Obviously, he's a big guy. He's from New York as well as Eddie, so there's that connection. And then they did the Eddie Hook business. I think that's good for Hook. Hook needs a bit of personality injected into him ASAP. Things, in my opinion, you can see the reactions to Hook in recent months have been dreadful. Character is dead at the minute. And someone as colourful and as engaging as Eddie can get more out of Hook. But the problem with Hook is he just hasn't had enough time in the ring. He's a guy who should have been sent out to the Indies, sent on tours to Japan, whatever. Just get that guy time in the ring. But yeah, Eddie is another guy. Like, Eddie needs to be in tag and 6-man matches on Dynamite for the next fucking 6 weeks to get it, because at his age and his fitness levels, he needs in-ring time to get that ring rust off. There's other guys who can come back. Kenny Omega can come back after 10 months off and be amazing in the ring. Eddie's not that guy. Eddie will need in-ring time to get up there. Maybe a singles match for his return after 14, 15 months wasn't ideal. And they kept it short at 7 odd minutes. But yeah, this match was a struggle. And, we were kind of 0 for 2 after the first 2 matches. Now, both angles were good. Decent, at the very least. But then we go into this Mark Briscoe and MJF match. Tables and tacks. I was like, I don't know what to expect here. And then they start putting out 6,000 tacks on the floor, 10,000 tacks on the floor. On paper, Ronan says the slow slugfest should have been good for Eddie, but he was so rusty. Yeah, I think that probably sums her up. I think that's why they went with Big Bill, because it seemed like you get a slow, hard hitting slugfest, and that'll suit Eddie. But it just, he was so rusty. His timing was off. Missed his finisher. Those things. I don't know. Maybe you needed another guy. I don't know. I don't know if you could have put someone else in there, would it have worked better? I'm not sure. But then MJF and Briscoe put 50 fucking thousand tacks on the floor, and they built a perfect wrestling match. They maximized every single spot to perfection. Talk about getting so much out of so little move. This was economy in motion. They just maximized every single spot in the match, and how long it took for MJF to take a bump, and then just the character work involved. Both of these played this perfectly for their characters. MJF just not taking bumps, putting the tables away. Briscoe fucking throwing himself into the tacks, and when he finally dropped MJF in the tacks, the catharsis for the live audience and for people watching at home was just incredible. And then the standing froggy bow through the table, and then the other froggy bow, and I just thought into the J Driller, which was built into the story with MJF saying that the wrong Briscoe died, and stuff that I didn't like in the build, but they paid it off anyway in the match. And this was a 20-minute match that maybe had 25 wrestling moves, if even, and it flew by. This was just such a good time, and it was a match that had no right, given the stipulation, to be as satisfying as it did. And to see MJF's what appeared to be dick blood everywhere, it was just such a satisfying match. And MJF takes the pin from Mark Briscoe. Pure perfection. It's not going to be on any match of the year lists, but it doesn't matter. This was such a good time, so entertaining, and this caps really and a legacy defining weekend for MJF in 2 losses. He goes to Arena Mexico. He puts over their hero, Mystico. Did I say Arena Mystico? He goes to Arena Mexico, puts over Mystico in a mask match, eats shit as the heel, and he eats shit again here tonight as the heel. It was the safest match I've seen in a while, but awesome with what they did. Yeah, exactly. Super safe match, considering there was 50,000 tacks on the floor. And just MJF has now, this elevates Mark Briscoe massively. And there was rumours popping up there for a long time that MJF really wanted to work with Briscoe. He respects him a lot and wanted to put him over. And he fucking did it here in, the most perfect way ever. Loved this match. Loved it. And I was thought the show from here was in some ways kind of off to the races. We go to the 6-man tag match, The Demand of Bishop Khan, Ricochet, and Toa Leona. Terrible name, by the way, lads. That name needs to go. The Demand. The fuck is that? That's such a shit name. Versus the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby, MVP, and Shelton. And this was a weird match. It was a good match, as you'd expect. But it was a weird match. Because MVP was in the ring almost the entire time, and then MVP just got pinned at the end. Now, I did like the way that they wiped out Bobby and Shelton. Thought that was cool. That was well done. And it really... Now, the key here was this match has made particularly Gates of Agony look like a real threat, and they needed that. These are guys who've been knocking around the lower card of Ring of Honor and AEW for 3 years, 4 years now, and this kind of solidifies them as a credible threat to the upper mid card. Ronan says MJF taking the pin here is something WWE would definitely not do, which shows the difference. There's no way they'd have a Mark Briscoe pin in MJF. No chance would WWE do that. I think AEW have come to the realization that a lot of their stars, like their MJFs, like Swerve, like Hangman, they can lose and not suffer the perception that generally comes with losing. Like Hangman, I think went from when Hangman lost the title to CM Punk to when he beat. So that's 2022. Yeah, May 22 to when he beat Ospreay in May 2025. I think he only won 3 matches on pay per view. Lost essentially every other match. And he was still the most beloved guy in the company. And when it was time to heat him up again, no problem. No problem. Swerve came in and lost every big match for his first 2 years. And when it was time to heat him up for a title run, no problem. MJF's the same. That guy can lose. Well, all it does is elevate Mark Briscoe. In fact, in some ways, MJF is probably more over now after it. And you know what he's like. You know what he's like. He'll turn the loss here into something more. Now, guys, I don't know if they can do that is Bobby and Shelton. Because rumour has it that their contract is up in November. Is this them in some ways bowing out? We're hearing a lot more of MVP on the podcast circuit recently. Maybe he's preparing for life post AEW. I would still love to see Bobby Lashley putting over Hangman. Bobby's never been pinned in AEW. I would love to see Bobby versus Hangman. Hangman beats him. Clean as a whistle in the middle. But yeah, Bishop Khan and Toa Leon are going to get loads from this. This Ricochet is another guy. You could beat Ricochet on every pay-per-view for 2 years, and if you need to heat him up, no problem. No problem. Ricochet's another guy in like that you could have like MJF, Swerve, Hangman. He's obviously not on that level, but he's a guy you can beat who won't lose anything from it, especially now the way his character is. And we go from that match into Mercedes versus Rio. To me, Rio is a relic of a different era of AEW. Someone who was tremendously over with the fan base in the early days. If you were watching in the early days, she was hugely over. I know Dunphy was never a fan. I was never really a fan of her in-ring work, but she was someone who got over every time she was on screen. Like, if you look at the reaction from when she beat Nyla Rose for the AEW women's title, it was an almost deafening reaction. That woman was over with the fan base. But the division has moved on, the company has moved on. I think there's been a kind of a big turnover with the fan base. I think like not the 7 or 800,000 fans in the US who were watching the show in 2019, 2020 aren't necessarily the same group of people who are watching the show now. And Rio came into this match cold, and the match itself felt cold, despite the fact that the match was really well wrestled and Mercedes again put in an excellent performance. It's just not something that the fans in the arena reacted to, which I think in many ways hurt the match on watching it on television or, through a screen at home. But yeah, it was a well wrestled match. There's not a whole lot to say about this. And this was kind of a dead rubber anyway. There was no way Mercedes was losing this, because I believe she's like a week short of breaking Jade Cargill's longest reign as the TBS champion. So obviously, Jade Cargill had that record of longest reigning women's champion in the company. Mercedes close to it with the same title. Jade Cargill has left the company, so what do you want to do? You want to get that record onto someone else. So there was no way Mercedes was ever going to lose this, and it felt like that, and the crowd didn't believe in Rio. And so that hurt the match. But in terms of the wrestling that took place in the ring, it was very well wrestled, in my opinion. And anyway, let's get on with it, because the next match was just mesmerizing. The unified title triple threat match between Okada, Takeshita, and Mascara Dorada. Talk about an elevation. Dorada comes out of this match looking like a fucking $1 million. He looked incredible. Everything about this match was just so exciting. And it goes back to, Okada, when he was 16, went off to train with Ultimo Dragon. That guy loves Lucha Libre, but he trained in Lucha Libre. And he is a tremendous base for high flyers. And all of it, he looked like he was having to, I criticize Okada. We all criticize Okada sometimes for the effort he puts in a lot of his AEW matches. And look, he was like that in New Japan as well. People don't realize that when he's out, when they're doing the tour dates and he's in 6-man tag matches, 4 nights in a row on tour around, in the build up to a big pay-per-view match, he's doing fucking jack shit. He was doing jack shit. He'd do nothing in those matches. And then he'd show up to pay-per-view and do a 40-minute main event and look like the best wrestler who ever lived. The best wrestler who ever lived. There was a time period from like 2016 to like even 2021 where for a whole 5-year period, Okada actually looked like what I imagined prime Ric Flair was. Except it was only like that if you were only watching his big pay-per-view main events. But every single one of those big main events delivered at a level that was almost inconceivable. It's like, how is this guy this good all the time? He constantly shows up and puts in incredible performances. But I just thought this match nailed everything. Everything. Like, the sequences were just so crisp, so inventive, so exciting. The crowd were going nuts for this. The crowd were going nuts for Dorada. Shane says, with the exception of Ray, WWE would never allow a lucha wrestler shine like Mascara. 100%. Like, Dragon Lee is every bit as good as Mascara Dorada, if not better. In fact, Dragon Lee is better. He has a more proven track record. When would Dragon Lee ever get to look like this in a match? Fucking never. Never. It is particularly if he's in there against what are considered two top guys in the company. Dragon Lee would be just kind of, and also, but Mascara, and I think Okada knew this going in, that Mascara Dorada was going to absolute bump his arse off for Okada. So Okada was going to look incredible, throwing this guy around, hitting him with moves. Like, so Okada gave it back. And Okada, I know I'm kind of harping on Okada here and I haven't mentioned Takeshita yet, who was also excellent in this match. But I thought, like, obviously Dorada came out of the match looking incredible. And he was incredible. I'm not taking anything away from him. But I felt it was Okada's performance within this match that elevated Dorada. And Takeshita did as well, but I just thought Okada was exceptional in this match as the lucha base. Like, the Beast Mortis, if you look at him when he's in there with other lucha guys, he is literally one of, like, the best base wrestlers you could have. A big guy going up against a high flyer who can take all the moves, make it look great, but also catch him when he needs catching. And there was a move in this match where Dorada did like a tope type thing or dived to the outside. And again, for any young wrestlers, any young people who want to be a wrestler, watch the way Okada caught him. Picture perfect. He made it look like he got wiped out, but he protected Dorada. And, when it built to that double Hurricane Rana off the top, and the crowd just goes nuts. And then you're like, okay, Dorada's a made guy. And now Dorada's a guy that they can bring in whenever they want through the relationship with CMLL, and the crowd are going to love him. He's a fucking made man now because of what Okada and Takeshita did for him in this match. But even more importantly than that, like, great, that was brilliant. And that in and of itself made this match excellent. But then you go above that to the next level and the teases of what we know is coming of the Okada Takeshita singles matches, I'm going to predict, that are coming up. And that tease where they chucked Dorada outside and they were left standing side by side, not face to face, side by side. And that sequence they did was like this 2-minute sequence in the match that ended with the Blue Thunder Bomb. It was mind blowing. And you're left there going like, they gave you just enough to go, oh my God, this Okada Takeshita match is going to be amazing. And another thing about Okada is very protective of himself and his character and who he puts over. But I think, again, it's also painfully obvious here that Takeshita is a guy who he wants to elevate. There was a lot of guys in New Japan who he didn't want to elevate. But when the time comes for him to do that, and there's a guy that he wants to elevate, he goes that extra mile. And I think Takeshita is one of those guys. He did it with Omega. And I'm not saying Omega wasn't on his level, but he knew that him and Omega could be career-defining rivals, and when the time came to have that match, he went 150% to make Omega look amazing and to make the match be amazing. But, you know, in those matches you had two guys doing it, and you're going to have two guys doing it when Okada and Takeshita have their singles matches. There's other guys he didn't do that for. You know, when they were putting him in with the evils of the world and that, he was just like, yeah, whatever. Sanada, he just kind of showed up and fucking went through the motions. But when it's someone that he believes in, he will go all out to do everything he can to make them look as great as they possibly can. And I don't mean by that him carrying them. He's not carrying them. He's just putting in the effort so that they can have a great match. I think what we're going to get is, I just have a feeling that we're going to get an Okada Takeshita Continental Classic final at the end of December, and Okada's going to win it. And then less than a week later, we're going to get a Takeshita versus Okada main event of the Tokyo Dome, and Takeshita's going to win it. And there are huge, even like, I just get the feeling, right? AEW have been teasing this feud now for a while. Okada, when he left New Japan, he did not leave on good terms. That's kind of common knowledge. And there's a very frosty relationship there. And Takeshita's won the G1. He's facing Zack very soon, in a few weeks, for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. I think it's quite obvious Takeshita's going to win that title. And with Takeshita being the G1 winner / probably the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, it creates really difficult political climate for the Okada and Takeshita match to take place, because New Japan are supposedly really pissed off at Okada. Okada's supposedly really pissed off at New Japan. And how do you in AEW have Okada beat Takeshita without pissing off New Japan? You're beating what is essentially their top guy now, and the guy that they are building their future around. So I think there has to be a deal done between Okada, Tony, New Japan. I think they may have settled. Even the fact that they're going with this as a singles match somewhere kind of tells me they must have settled things behind the scenes. Because there's no way this match could have taken place 12 months ago. The way, with the level the two guys are at. I think part of that might be that Tony gets the first match of the series, and that'll happen at Continental Classic. And that, because Tanahashi's retirement, unfortunately, isn't enough at the minute to sell out the Tokyo Dome. And Takeshita's first title defense on its own isn't enough to sell out the Tokyo Dome. You know, it might be enough to put 35,000 fans in the Tokyo Dome, maybe 40,000 fans. Is Okada's first match there in 2 years? I don't know. I just get that feeling. David Ayer says Tony Khan has an announcement at Dynamite. I personally think they're doing a tag team Continental Classic, so you're not sure if they'll do. Oh, Continental Classic. What makes you think a tag team Continental Classic? I would love a tag team Continental Classic. Like, some of my favourite matches in wrestling history have come from the old All Japan Real World Tag Leagues. So I'd love a tag Continental Classic. I have a feeling, and I'm not basing this on anything as such. Well, kind of am basing it on comments that Tony made a couple of months back. I think he might be announcing women's tag titles. And yeah, so that's what I think. So, no, I don't know. The wording of the announcement is weird, because if you look at previous announcements, they've had like Tony Khan has a mega announcement, Tony Khan has a super blah 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 announcement. This one says an important announcement. So I don't know. You know what, Tony has these announcements, and sometimes you're like, all right, it was actually really not, and that affects us as viewers. You've signed a new deal with fucking peanuts. I don't know. Roland says AEW starting to use their CMLL guys really well. Yes. This is probably the best use of outsiders we've seen. Maybe Tony's learning. Maybe Tony's learning how to use his outsiders in, like, when you only have access to him sparingly. What's the best way to get the use out of him? He might be just getting better at that. And David Ayers then says, following up from his prediction of a tag team Continental Classic, They set up lots of tag teams on the show. Hook, Kingston, Jurassic Express, and I feel like there's one more. Acclaimed. That's the other one. Thanks, David. Yeah, you might be onto something there. It's not something I thought about. They just ran a single limb knockout tag tournament. So a tag Continental Classic will be deadly because you get a shitload of matches out of it. And they've certainly replenished the division at this time. I don't know if the fan base would accept not having a singles Continental Classic after having 2 years of it. Shane says the overpromising and under-delivering on these announcements was a Tony issue that Triple H is now constantly making. Yeah, Triple H is like going on every fucking talk show, going podcast, a whole lot, and post-show press conferences, doing his big thing of making these big, bold announcements that really have no effect on the fans. And a few years ago, it almost became a meme and a joke that Tony, because the first couple of times Tony Khan has an announcement to make, it popped the TV rating for that quarter. People tuned in to see what the announcement was going to be. And then it became, the announcement is jack shit. So who cares? And then it became, what Shane is there is that, we're getting pissed off with these announcements because they're not big things, and why are you wasting our time with them? I think that's a fair comparison as well, because it's a similar comparison to Oshin made on the Instagram today about concentrating on the other company. That's something that Tony got wrong in the past that Triple H is now doing. The sins of history, we were going to repeat them. And I think it was after this match then we got that backstage tease of the Acclaimed with Jerry Lynn. Always great to see Jerry Lynn. Love that guy. We're in a real tricky place with the Acclaimed because I feel bad for Max Caster. His shtick as the greatest wrestler alive who keeps getting beaten in 5 minutes was fucking golden television. And it had a place. And then Bones is out there. And Bones was the one that we all thought was going to get over. And then now it feels like Max Caster is being punished back into a tag team that feels like it's run its course because Anthony Bones didn't get over. So I kind of feel bad for Max Caster there because Max Caster was getting over. He was over, actually. The gimmick was over. But now we're going back to the Acclaimed, and I don't does that run its course? Possibly. Ronan says there, Triple H's huge surprise being his wife headlined the Hall of Fame's worst night. I think Tony did. Yeah. Well, look, Ronan, in case you're not aware, Stephanie McMahon invented women's wrestling in 2014. So she obviously has to go into the Hall of Fame. She invented women's wrestling. Let's not forget that. And then we get into the coffin match. The fucking coffin match was just sensational. Again, 20 minutes. Just brilliant stuff between the two biggest maniacs that we've had in over a decade in professional wrestling. On mainstream professional wrestling, there's loads of maniacs on different various deathmatch indies and so on. But these guys are operating on, Darby Allin really is the Mick Foley of his time in terms of the just insanity he's willing to do. And this such a great match. This set, Darby's selling. Mox is just on the fucking, compare our feelings for Mox now to after the Copeland program in January, February this year. Talk about an all-time fucking turnaround. The stuff with Daniel Garcia on TV was exceptional. Obviously, the Hangman stuff was exceptional. The kind of little teases going on between him and Claudio are exceptional. The stuff with Chris Statlander is exceptional. Shannon says he's turned on his Mox hate. You've turned it on, that you hate him more, or you've turned back towards the light of Moxley being a fucking pro wrestling god at the minute. He's just, his current run is for a guy who was literally, people were saying he needed to retire or go back to the Hangman match changed your perception. I get you. You're back on the Mox train to a certain degree. This is a guy that people were saying 5-6 months ago needs to go back to the Fed, needs to retire, needs to go away and take time off. And now we're now he's a candidate for Wrestler of the Year. That's an insane turnaround. And the Hangman match, it wasn't the turning point, but kind of solidified the turnaround. He started to turn around, I think, around the time of the Swerve match, in my opinion. But it was slowly moving in the right direction. And then the Hangman match solidified that majorly. I thought what helped again was the anarchy in the arena in between. I thought that was great. But the Hangman match solidified it, like Shane said there. I think that match changed a lot of people's perception of the work he was doing. And then the post, everything since the Hangman match has been 10 out of 10. Like, he's just nailed every little thing he's had to do on TV. The fact he's wrestling on Collision, he's wrestling on Dynamite, he's having great matches, like these really simple TV matches, and we're getting the best version of him. He's getting the balance right between his kind of crappy MMA thing and what he does really well. He was on the verge. Ron says he was on the verge of going to Jericho route. It actually felt like that, of like being super stale and washed, and not getting the character right. He is not playing the role of an unhinged badass. He's become an unhinged badass, Shane says. An unreal turnaround. And this match was just fucking excellent. And do you know what's crazy about this? I haven't heard one person complain that Mox got the win. Imagine that 2 or 3 months ago. If Mox beat Darby in if Moxley beat Darby in a coffin match a few months ago, we would have seen things on Twitter and all this, like, it would have felt like the fucking apocalypse, the Mox apocalypse. But no, I haven't seen one complaint about Moxley winning this match. And I felt like Darby definitely has to be. Now, obviously, we're going more, and we had a Pac return here. The craziest thing about this match, we saw Darby Allin take like 5 of the craziest bumps since the last Darby Allin match in professional wrestling. And yet, the most shocking thing in this match was Pac showed up wearing clothes. He was fully dressed. And you know what they say, you're never fully dressed without a smile. Well, the bastard wasn't smiling. But Pac showed up fully dressed. That was the most shocking thing. He had his clothes on and he got a nice little haircut. I'm on... sorry, Shane. This is the second... So, my thumbnails earlier when I sent it to Shane to put out on Instagram spoiled the main event for him, and now I'm after spoiling the Mox match for him. What was stranger, Pac with short hair or wearing clothes? Wearing clothes. Pac wearing clothes was the strangest thing I've ever seen. Do you know, years ago, and he went to CMLL before he was even Neville, I think. Oh no, it was a couple of years ago. No, it was after he was Neville. It was like 2 years ago when they first did the CMLL thing and the Blackpool Combat Club went down, and I think it was that time. Pac went on a talk show with his greasy, sweaty hair in his wrestling gear on a fucking talk show. Everyone else is there in suits, and Pac was in his wrestling gear. And he shows up tonight in clothes. Now, I know probably the angle demanded that. I'd say he was probably hanging out at ringside as dressed as a cameraman or whatever, like some stage guy, stagehand, whatever. Pac wearing clothes means he was no longer ready for a fight. It was so bizarre seeing him in clothes. But like, yeah, I just think the crazy thing here is that if Darby nobody's complained about Darby losing the match. And it felt right that Mox won. And it was a fucking tremendous match. And I love the way he sent away Garcia, and he sent away Garcia, and he sent away Claudio, and he sent away Yuta. Everyone is watching. Can you give Morrow shit for his poor booking of WCW 1992? Sound off in the comments. Fuck you, Shane. My booking is brilliant. I can't help it if people are idiots. The booking is perfect. Wait till Wednesday. Wednesday's episode of Fire Bill Watts. Well, Bill Watts did get fired in 1992. Maybe I'm trending in the same direction as the real Bill Watts. Wednesday's episode of Total Extreme Morrow is, honestly, I'm not patting my own back here, but an exceptional episode. Can't watch live tonight, but look forward to watch tomorrow. WrestlePalooza was such a low-level PPV, yet the hype they tried to build before it was as if we wanted a bit new Big Four. Yet that's Jared. Thanks, Jared, for popping in. Thanks for the thoughts. It was dog shit. Ronan says Pac looked like the lad who comes to the gym in baggy gear and then bangs out 100 chin-ups. He actually did. I bet you he could do 100 chin-ups as well. So yeah, love the Moxley Darby Allin match. Love the reintroduction of Pac. And then we get into the AEW Women's World Title 4-way match. Again, nice short match with a shocking finish. I called it on here in a WhatsApp group that I think Chris Statlander's the next champion. Didn't expect to happen so soon. I loved that she used the straight jacket pin that Yuta has been telling her to use. It ties in with that storyline. Excellent stuff. Shock ending, shock champion. I thought everyone came out of this match looking good. It was just one of those 4 matches that was worked at a high pace with lots of good action and then a shocking end. And a perfect ending because it ties in with the storyline with the Death Riders and Yuta and Marina and Mox, and also protects Tony Storm because I think we're going to see a big singles program here, and I think Statlander's going to actually turn heel. And this title move also brings Willow into the title picture. And I think Statlander's going to join the Death Riders, and they're going to cost Tony the rematch. But Statlander came out looking like a badass, and we got just a really brave decision from Tony Khan to end this match with a flash kind of pin, a shock pin, and move the title off who is undoubtedly kind of what has been built as their biggest star in the women's division onto Statlander. Tony Storm lost nothing in this loss. Statlander gained loads in this win, and it's moved the division in what I think is a very intriguing direction. Jerbanan says, enjoying TEM, but definitely try to avoid the 2-hour shows. Took me over a week to watch. Yes, Jer, I promise every show will be around the hour mark going forward. When I did the episode 3, the Super Brawl one, I edited it down. I had like 10 hours of footage. I just recorded way too much. But I got better at it since then. I know what I'm doing now. I know how to kind of keep the pace ticking along. Which I ended up doing a fucking 2-hour video of me playing a video game. What was I doing? It was punk. When I extracted, or not extracted it, whatever the editing word is, when I rendered it, and it came up 2 hours, 12 minutes, I was like, oh shit. And then I watched it to try and see what I could cut out, and I was like, oh fuck it, I'm just going to upload it. Shane just said, fuck it, upload it. So we did. Yeah, really looking forward to where the Statlander stuff goes with Tony Storm. That ain't finished. There's loads of juice left. There's loads of meat left on that bone. And then into the tag team title 4-way ladder match. Look, this was a really good match. Very exciting. But like, is anyone else just done with ladder matches? And like, it's not as if AEW are oversaturating us with ladder matches. It's just professional wrestling has oversaturated us with ladder matches. Like, the TLC matches were like 25 years ago at this stage. I just feel like we need a new multi-man match type. Because like, this was a really good match, but also it was kind of like, okay, like, is there anything else we can do here that would offer us something different? And you know, there's guys flying through, like these guys are taking outrageous bumps. That backflip knee stomp thing that Mike Bailey did on Hechicero on the ladder was insane. And the crowd popped for like 10 seconds and then on to the next thing. I just don't think like what's bring back the scaffold match. Oh man, those matches always terrified me, Ronan. I enjoyed the execution of this particular one, but yeah, ladder matches are a bit oversaturated now. That's Oshin. Yeah, I'm saying like I thought this was a really good ladder match. And like the Young Bucks are probably the best ladder matches maybe ever. Certainly going back to Edge and Christian or the Hardys. But at the same time, it's just our ladder match. I just think ladder matches are oversaturated. And like, yeah, maybe AEW are only running 1 or 2 a year. But then WWE are running 3 or probably 4 or 5 a year if you count the women's Money in the Bank and the men's Money in the Bank and the various tag ones that take place. And it just becomes a kind of a cheap way, in my opinion, to do a big high spot match with multiple teams involved and get more people on the card and create excitement. When really what we need is somebody to come up with a new concept of a multi-man tag match that can be like real exciting and fast paced and have some death defying bumps. But it can't be ladders anymore. think they need to move away from ladders. And I think AEW, like Tony and them, need to realise that their fan base aren't just watching them, really. There is a certain portion of their fan base that are just watching them, but a lot of the AEW fan base are watching multiple wrestling companies. At the very least, 2 wrestling companies. So then Ronan says there's so many high spots in regular matches now that the high spots in ladder matches don't get the same reaction. Yeah, like 2 matches before we had Darby Allin doing some of the crazy shit of all time. The man got powerbombed out of the ring onto a fucking coffin. Like, how can anything in the ladder match top that? It can't. Well, they could, and they kind of nearly did at times, but there's something so visceral about the way Darby Allin bumps as well, that, and the way he sells, that the ladder match couldn't top it. David Ayers wants a pogo stick match. I'd be all aboard for seeing Bandito on a pogo stick. Actually, see Brody King on a pogo stick. That would be fucking awesome. So yeah, Bandito, the right choice. These guys are fucking tearing it up as a tag team at the minute. And did I skip? Oh no, it was after this match. Yeah, Bandito are tearing it up as a tag team. I thought HCR and Josh Alexander. I'd love to see HCR and Josh Alexander get like a 3-4 month run with tag titles. I think those guys are fucking excellent. I think Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight are excellent. There's 2 guys that, like I mentioned earlier on, with the likes of Ricochet, MJF and that, who can lose and lose nothing. Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey are those type of guys as well. They can win, they can lose, and still feel as hot and cool on the next episode of Dynamite. Young Bucks, you can beat them every day of the week and just decide one day they're our next champions, let's go again, and they don't lose anything. Ronan wants AEW to bring in the barbed wire trampoline match. I've never seen one, but I'll watch. I love barbed wire matches. I love barbed wire exploding death matches. I went back there a couple of years ago during COVID. Actually, watched a lot of those old Onita matches. My God. Shane says a ladder match where if you go for the title, you can be pinned and eliminated from the match, so it'd make going for the title have some jeopardy. Yes, you can't. That would be cool. Like, the guy pinning you doesn't win the match, but you getting pinned, you're eliminated from the match. That would be awesome. Yeah, it needs something. The stipulation needs a little bit of reworking. And then after the match, we get Jack Perry showing up. The Bucks he attacks the Bucks. They go to wipe him out, give him the whatever it's called now, not the EVP trigger, the trigger. And then we get this really hokey but kind of cool video plays on the thing of him resurrecting Luchasaurus, and Luchasaurus comes back. It sounds like a King of the Mountain match. It does actually sound like a King of the Mountain match. Fuck it, do it. I don't know. I think ladders need to go for a while. But yeah, we get the reunion of the Lucha Express, Luchasaurus and Jack Perry. I wonder, is he back to Jungle Boy? I wonder, will he go back to his little Tarzan uniform? We'll see. But yeah, look, the Jack Perry thing as the tough heel was a failed experiment. And I don't know how much of that was to do with CM Punk stuff, or how much that is to do with Jack Perry not being able to play a heel and maybe not being as charismatic as we might have thought he was in the early days. But yeah, like this, going back to the Lucha Express, whatever it's called, it's an admission of failure on their part with Jack Perry, both from Jack Perry and from the company, I think. But also, they were such a great tag team. People forget they had a load of great tag team matches, and you know what, they did this right. This is the type of thing that I think a year or two ago, if they were reuniting that tag team, Tony would have dragged this shit out over 5 or 6 weeks. And tonight he just fucking one angle, get them back together, hit the cool music that everyone loves, fucking send them home happy. Get it done and get them back into the tag division. And they probably have a tag match on Wednesday or on Saturday or on the following Wednesday. Just really good piece of business. Also, as we were talking earlier, the tag division is getting a bit stacked again. You know, we have, who was, I think David said it earlier, Kingston and Hook coming in, the Lucha Boys brothers, not them, Perry and Luchasaurus coming in, Acclaimed coming back in. Hopefully Jay White and the other gun will be back soon, and that'll help. But the tag division is looking tasty at the minute, I think. There's a lot of cool shit they can do. And with fresh champions there, like Brodito, it's really interesting. The division is in an interesting place. Like, Swerve became world champion material because of his tag team with Keith Lee. And I think the same could happen for Bandito or Brody King. It would have been more impactful if Lucha... Yeah, that was my next point, Ronan. Luchasaurus coming back a month earlier for the Christian and Copeland tag match at Forbidden Door kind of lessened the impact of this. But this is a total rebuild anyway for Luchasaurus and Jack Perry. And it's going back to Jack Perry in his best role in AEW. But hopefully having that, carrying forward the confidence of having had somewhat of a run as kind of heavily featured single star, despite the fact that it wasn't a good run. I think they fast forwarded it because of the Nick Wayne injury. They did, yeah. Now, I don't know, I'd say Luchasaurus wasn't supposed to come back until tonight, and they just needed something that made sense to replace Nick Wayne, so they just kind of stuck him in there as kill switch. And what they did do that I thought was interesting was, when they brought him in as kill switch, they did in all the tag matches that I think him and Kip Sabian had 3 together or so, they did play up the fact that these guys couldn't cooperate and weren't on the same page. So they tried to keep it kind of kayfabe and so on. But yeah, look, this is good. This is the best use of Jack Perry at the moment. He is kind of a failed single star, unfortunately. But maybe he can find his way again. And the guy's 28. You can't write him off. But yeah, I think see how this tag reunion goes. And then we get the main event of Adam Page and Kyle Fletcher. 40-minute match that flew by in the blink of an eye, in my opinion. This is the match, when I was talking about how earnest the crowd interaction was for MJF and Mystico and Rena Mexico on Friday night, this is the match that could have done with that. That kind of crowd. Because I thought both men played their parts excellently in this match. I thought Kyle Fletcher looked like every bit of a world champion. I thought his heel performance was... Look at the shit that man did in the first 7 to 10 minutes of that match. The way he elicited heat and the way he elicited reactions from the crowd was exceptional. But North American crowds just don't buy in that often. And the match just never got to that. Now, is this a 5-star match? Probably, in my opinion. Oshie McCarthy said if this was a world level test for Kyle Fletcher, he passed with flying colours. He absolutely did. He was exceptional in this match. But Hangman was exceptional as well. And I thought they just built the match superbly. The way Fletcher was such a great heel controlling it. The way he got heat was excellent. And the way he just couldn't overcome Hangman. And it tied into the funny thing is, he proved he was ready on that level of us from a fan watching as analysing, think that yeah, that guy's now ready to be a world champion. But in kayfabe, he's still not ready. He could get so close. But Hangman's experience and toughness and all that stuff is what got him over the line. Fucking fabulous main event. And I thought the most important thing about this match wasn't Kyle Fletcher's elevation up the card. I think the most important thing about this match is there was no interference, no ref bump, no shenanigans. It's been so long since there was a pay-per-view main event and our world title match that didn't have any shenanigans. It was almost getting ridiculous, and it was kind of turning me off the product, despite the fact that obviously the All-In main event was an incredible match, but it needed it's baked into the storyline that it have to have shenanigans, and the max match at Forbidden Door suffered because of the shenanigans. However, this match didn't need it, didn't have it, and it's almost retraining the audience to think that not every main event needs to have all these 56 bells and whistles surrounding it. Fucking exceptional, pure pro wrestling match. Ronan says, did you see the Stevie Richards' comments on Kyle Fletcher were some of the most misplaced, ludicrous comments I've ever heard. He needs to learn how to get heat, is what he said. Kyle Fletcher needs to learn how to get heat. I was like, has Stevie Richards watched a single Kyle Fletcher match? This guy is doing it better than anyone since the 1980s in terms of getting heat from the smallest, simplest things. Kyle Fletcher is a master. Look at the way he stooges. Like, what he does so good is when things are going against him, he stooges like a bitch. And then when things are going in his favour, he grows into a monster. It's perfect heel characterization. He's both a monster and a whiny heel at the same time. And it makes perfect sense because he can be the monster when he's on top. And then when it goes against him, he turns into this whiny bitch or whatever you want to call it. And Stevie Richards is out here. And what's more, Ronan, he said he needs to go to NXT to learn how to slow down. I'm like, have you watched an NXT match? Those guys just go 600 miles an hour with choreographed nonsense for 20 minutes. It's insane. Like, they work faster than any other promotion going at the moment because everything's choreographed and nobody slows down. So everything that Stevie Richards said in that Kyle Fletcher thing was way off the mark. It was like he couldn't have been more wrong about every aspect of what he said if he tried to be more wrong. Imagine Kyle Fletcher in NXT. He would be the best, and I'm including Ethan Page and Ricky Starks in this one. Kyle Fletcher would be the best wrestler in NXT by, I'm not joking, 7 million %. This guy's one of the best wrestlers in the world. This guy might be top 3 heel. He might be the best heel in the world. He might be the best heel in the world right now in terms of how he draws heat. I think he's better than MJF at it in how he does it, because I think MJF misses the mark by being too unsubtle at times. Was unsubtle a word? Yeah, I think it is. I'm an English teacher, by the way. Fucking hell. But I think MJF just pushes it too far at times and it becomes kind of corny or cheesy or cringy, whereas Kyle Fletcher just gets it more. And the guy's 25 years of age. It's crazy. This guy is the fucking future of pro wrestling. And he's going to be a massive face. He's going to be a huge face in a couple of years' time. But I think give him a heel run first. Oshin says Fletcher and Don Callis are literally two of the biggest heat managers. Yes, yeah. Like, Don Callis didn't leave the announcer's desk in this match. And he was getting fuck you Don Callis chants. Brilliant. Fletcher was just getting boos from 2 minutes in. It was like Stevie thinks Fletcher is only in wrestling 3 years. See, that's the thing I felt there, not since he's 15. That's the thing I felt, Ronan, is that he thinks Fletcher is new to this shit, not realizing that this guy has been wrestling in New Japan for like 5 years before coming to AEW, and is like seasoned. Like, he's a 25-year-old seasoned vet. You can see it in him. His character development since he turned on Ospreay last year was brilliant. Even the character stuff before turning on Ospreay was good, but something clicked for him. Something clicked that has turned him into one of the best wrestlers in the world and possibly the best heel in the world. Right at this minute, he'll have ups and downs. He'll get hot, he'll get cold like everyone else. MJF had ups and downs, and he'll have ups and downs, but I think this guy is going to be a great heel for a few years, and I think he's genuinely going to be a mega babyface because he has that in him as well. You could see the way this match was designed. It was designed to tell a babyface story in 3 years' time, like the Adam Page story. I think Kyle Fletcher is the future, shaving his head. Yeah, when he shaved his head, that just that moment, and it was like it all clicked. Because he did that thing in turning heel of when you turn heel, you change everything. Change the music, change the ring gear, change his hair. He changed it all. And it all started with the shaving the head. And then it all just clicked for him. fucking brilliant professional wrestler. My God. I can't remember being this excited about a 25-year-old since, Jesus, I don't know, maybe when Pamela Anderson showed up on uh, Baywatch for the first time. That might be the last time I was this excited about a 25-year-old. As soon as he became a singles wrestler, he showed he was a real star. Yeah, and like I loved that tag team. Aussie Open. I thought they were a great tag team. I think Mark Davis has a lot to offer, but you can never put that tag team back together now because fuck me, Kyle Fletcher is like an A-side star, like. But yeah, it really did click. Okay, let's go over to the other show. Fuck me. Where are my notes on this one? I didn't even take that many notes. Not as nowhere near as much as I took on the first one. But like, this show was a slog. Okay. Brock Lesnar defeats John Cena in a few minutes. Fucking shit match. Like, what else do you say? Like, we can stand here now and talk about how this Cena retirement run is an incredible botch. And I don't even want to say it's a stain on Cena's legacy, because I don't think it is. Cena's legacy is solidified. Oshin says, and now for WrestlePalooza of shite. Because that's what it was. They were building this up as this big mega thing. Their first show on this mega ESPN deal. And in the first 45 minutes of the show, they had about 8 or 9 minutes of wrestling. If you were in America and you're watching ESPN and you've seen all the I forgot to mention the counter program these nuts signed. That was fucking brilliant when Eddie Kingston was entering. Brilliant. I'm going to get into the counter. I know we're going long today. What are we, an hour and 17 in? This is already the longest version of All Elite Morro. But let's do the counter program and stuff now. I think the counter programming backfired massively this weekend. And I think Tony has proven he was right to go early. Because he had an excellent show. He was able to run his main event over the first 45 minutes of the WWE show. Anyone who was watching the AEW, I don't think too many turned over at the start of the Kyle Fletcher Adam Page match to watch Lesnar and Cena. I think he hurt WWE more than WWE hurt him by going early. And he also had this perception thing of him having an unbelievable main event, while Brock Lesnar squashed John Cena and pissed off the crowd. He played a blinder with the overrun Ronan. And there's not too many talking about that. I think that should have been a more newsworthy talking point. And Oshin says definitely the most severe backfire. I know there was people saying, he should have gone head to head. No, he got in early. He outplayed them. I'm going first. I'm burning out wrestling watchers. I'm going to make them swap from watching my brilliant main event into watching whatever shit slop you're throwing up. It was brilliant because someone in here earlier said the whiplash they had when they switched from one to the other, because it's totally different professional wrestling. And look, if you like the WWE style, great. But also, even in terms of WWE style wrestling, this still wasn't a good show. It was nowhere near the shows they were putting on last year. Yeah, Brian there says ESPN themselves wrote a review calling it underwhelming and giving it a C. That is insane. That's insane. That's the nicest thing they could say about a thing that they just spent $340 million a year on. They gave it a C grade and called it underwhelming. Shocking. Roland says WrestlePalooza was a shit show long before the bell was rung. You had all that shit last week about ESPN Unlimited not having certain cable providers signed up. People were having a nightmare trying to get it. WWE wasn't listed on what tier you had to pay for. This whole thing was a complete shit show because they rushed into it to try and counter program All Out, which put on I didn't think All Out was the best AEW pay-per-view of the year or anything. I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. I thought it was probably above average. No, AEW is the best pay-per-view company. I think at this stage we could probably say in the history of wrestling. I don't think a company has put on 6 years straight of really that level of pay-per-views. 6 years straight of it. It's crazy. Like, they've rarely had a bad pay-per-view. Some pay-per-views have had shit matches, but no pay-per-view on a whole was bad. And you nearly get one fucking match of the year contender per pay-per-view. So, yeah, this Triple H, like, the WWE fans, like the hardcore fans, are fucking heavy turning on Triple H. Heavily turning on him. I thought that would never happen. But they start off with this Brock Lesnar and John Cena. It was crap. And it's the John Cena retirement run. Who wants to watch this shit? Who wants to watch John Cena get squashed by Brock Lesnar in 2025 in his fucking retirement run? Firstly, it's 2025. Nobody cares about Brock Lesnar. I do care in finding out who his drugs doctor is. You need to hook me up with that guy. I'm getting jacked. Because he looks obscene. He looks ridiculous. It's the best he's looked since 2002. He's shredded and gigantic at the same time. What's he injecting? Where's he getting it? That's high grade stuff. Insane. He looked insane. He is. He has the steroid swelling and is ripped. It was bonkers. Terrible match. Dog shit. Nobody wants to see that and seeing his retirement run. And like, why? Why? What was the point of this? Are they going to push Lesnar on top again? Nobody wants that. He was Ric Flair levels of red. Brian, when you're injecting that much shit into your arse to lift weights, you're going to have some blood pressure issues, I think. Yeah, Ronan says Triple H seems so disinterested in his own product, going on podcasts instead of being at TV and not know what's going on. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. Who's writing this? Probably the same doctor as Andrade. Andrade should get the same doctor. I've watched WWE for 30 years and I cannot remember an event that made me hate wrestling as much, driving me to AEW. That says it all there, Mr. Snub. I don't watch WWE weekly TVs as such. I catch a lot of shit on YouTube, like different things I want to see. I've watched all their pay-per-views for years now. Allegedly, sorry Shane, allegedly Brock Lesnar and doctors and so on. Allegedly. Don't sue. If you're going to sue the channel. Don't sue me. They're the one. My thoughts aren't my own. They're wrestling show's thoughts. Allegedly. But like WWE shows, like last year, I was entertained. Me and Shane were reviewing them, and I made no secret of the fact I'm not a big fan of their style, but I was still entertained by all their shows. They didn't have many bad ones. There might have been a couple of boring matches there. The structure of the show is boring because of the amount of ads or whatever, but there was always cool shit there. Triple H is going around now with probably the least deserved dose of main character energy. He's opening the show again. Ronan says Brock showing up like a week after they leaked the Andrade had a wellness, because they leaked the wellness violation. That's where that came from. They wanted it out there that Andrade was on the juice, and that's possibly why they got rid of him. Like, that story didn't come from Andrade's camp. That came from WWE been told to leak that to the media. That's blatantly obvious. Triple H's main character energy is just so annoying. And then he puts his wife into the Hall of Fame. Like, the first 2 years of Triple H's kind of role as being basically the head of WWE, he is the headliner of the Hall of Fame the first year, and his wife is the headliner of the Hall of Fame the second year. That is just hilarious, hilarious. I kind of respected that. I do kind of respect that. Fuck it, I'm headlining the first year, my wife's headlining the second year. Ronan says, a spokesperson for a wrestling show said Brock is full of rides. Allegedly. And then having the way they announced Stephanie to the Hall of Fame, talk about hilarious, like Undertaker in the crowd with a microphone. It was so awkward and cringy. Like, I want to get back to what Mr. Snrub said there, because 30 years watching WWE, about the same as myself. Yeah, 30 years watching WWE. And, like, they've done bad shows over the years, but it never made me hate them. This show kind of I had the same. Like, a lot of their business practices make me hate them. A lot of the misogyny and racism makes me hate them, but never a single show. Ronan says 2025 Triple H Hall of Fame, 2026 Stephanie McMahon Hall of Fame, 2027 Paul Levesque Hall of Fame, 2028 will be Hunter Hearst Helmsley Hall of Fame, 2029 Terra Rising Hall of Fame. It's just like hilarious. And then we get into the second match of the show, Division, a terrible name again, versus Defeat the Usos, Jay and Jimmy, in 17 minutes. This match was painful, thought it was never going to end, really one-dimensional. The right team won, I'll give it that. It wasn't a terrible match. But it was just slow and plodding and lacked anything dynamic. And I turned it over at a time where Jey Uso was just in the middle of the ring shouting yeet and Uso and doing just chants and chants and chants and chants. And like everything was like a chant. I was like, I've just watched Fletcher and Hangman tear it up for 40 minutes in a fantastic match. And now I'm just watching Jey Uso. So I watched the end of this match. And then I said, right, you know what? Actually, the best thing I can do from the whiplash that we spoke about earlier of how totally different the products are. I said, I'm not going to watch this show now because it's actually not going to be fair to the show. I'm not going to be able to do an honest review of the show if I continue it now. So I turned it off and turned it back on Sunday afternoon to try and give it a fair shake, you know. Shane will get a 30-second Hall of Fame speech probably from David. And then Ron says Shane will get one of the honourable mention inductions. Yeah, Shane's one will be just like thrown into, those guys who are just standing on the stage at WrestleMania. Mr. Snub says a fabricated moment of their entrance is all they cared about. Yeah, it's pure fabrication. It's just so sterile and corporate, and it's just hard to enjoy. Watching All Out beforehand was the biggest come down. It was. Shane goes into the memoriam section. Shane, allegedly, Shane. Social media moments rather than good wrestling. The Usos in general, they were a great tag team. And I know, because it's 2025 now, we forget that. But in 2016, 2017, they were genuinely having really fucking excellent tag matches. And even long after that, they had that great WrestleMania Night 1 main event. That's not a WrestleMania main event, by the way. That's a WrestleMania pre-interval main event with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But like, they've just slowed down so much, and they've just gone for moments, catchphrases, crowd interaction. It's just boring. Like, there's nothing exciting or dynamic or authentic about it. They snuck Vince in all over the fucking intro video, Ron, and that guy is going to be at Cena's final match. He's going to be on TV. We said it there a couple of weeks ago. What was it? We felt like we're bringing Brock back. It felt like they were soft launching a return for Vince, and seeing him all over the intro video feels kind of the same thing. They're going to bring him back and put him on TV. Now, Stephanie Vaquer and Io Sky had a fantastic match. Really great wrestling. Great finish. Right winner. But they haven't been using Stephanie well on TV. She's someone that I've been trying to keep an eye on. They're just not putting her on TV. Like, just send her out and let her have 10, 15, 12-minute matches on TV. She's a great in-ring. Io Sky is the same. She disappeared from TV for literally 2 months after WrestleMania. Like, yeah, let's have her go over Rhea and Bianca and then barely have her on TV for the next 2 months. Like, these guys can't tell stories and they can't book. It's insane to me. You have all this talent and you don't know how to use it. It's promotional malpractice is what it is. But yeah, great match. But in saying that, after watching Arena Mexico on a Friday night and All Out on the Saturday night, and then I'm watching this on the Sunday, it was like the 6th or 7th best match I've seen over the weekend. 5th maybe. I don't know, I'm not doing a list or anything, but like, it the kind of thing I can say about it is it would have fit in on All Out. There's no other match from here. The Eddie match was probably the worst match outside of the Lesnar Cena match, the Eddie Kingston one. But like, the only match you could take off this card and put onto the All Out card and would have held up quality wise was the Stephanie and Io match. What's next for Stephanie? At least Io has a story linked up with Asuka. Yeah, I don't know what's next for Stephanie. Like, they're not really good at booking the women's titles in terms of creating stories for them. And that, I think you can criticize AEW for that with the Mercedes, because Tony's obviously had great storylines, Tony Storm. But Mercedes has been a very kind of a challenger of the month type thing for a while now. I know they've had a few storylines built in there, the Athena stuff and all that. But in general, Mercedes has been a challenger of the month kind of champion, and I think Stephanie kind of feels like now the way the division is lined up with who's paired off with who and who's in tag stuff and who's doing other stuff, it feels like Stephanie's going to be a kind of challenger of the month type champion. I don't think that's going to help her. Mr. Snub says he enjoyed the match but can't tell it. Did it look better because of the feuds around it? Maybe it did. What was people's thoughts on Edge Lee and CM Punk versus The Vision? What a shit name. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Here's the thing about this match, in my opinion, and I want to hear your thoughts on it as well. Because this wasn't a bad match, but this was what I thought was a really good 15-minute match, dragged out to 30 minutes just so it could feel epic. Like, Fletcher and Hangman went 40 minutes, but they had 40 minutes material to make it feel epic. This was a match that had 15 minutes of moment to moment, spot to spot, but dragged out to 30 minutes to make it feel epic, despite it not being epic whatsoever. Mr. Trump said it was a spots match. It was a spots and moments match, I would say. You could add moments to the spots. It was we have these 5 or 6 cool moments, cool spots that we can plaster all over our social media. Storytelling, cinema, and we'll find ways of getting to the next one. It was a typical set match. It felt like a real WWE match. Oshin said that was Ronan. Oshin says, I thought it was very well choreographed match. Yeah, Edge Lee did well for what was her first match. She did actually. Yeah, it was her first match in 10 years. I think she would have been helped if the match time had been halved, because they could have done every single thing they did in this match in 15-20 minutes, which is 10 to 15, which is like shaving off 40 to 50% of the runtime would have helped this match dramatically. Because even like one sec I'm just going to right, let's just bring this up. This is the cage match. This match has a 6.56 on cage match based on 218 votes. A cage match isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. But like, I think cage match is kind of too fair to WWE at the moment. This is only getting a 6.56 on cage match. Like, I find a lot of things are overinflated on cage match. And the show itself got a 5.55. And there's a lot of WWE fans on cage match at the moment, because ever since the worst thing that ever happened was Tony Khan said his shows are getting good ratings on cage match. Then all these WWE fans joined the platform and fucking ruined the whole thing. It used to be a great thing. I can't even find what the top 100 matches are anymore. They've changed the fucking algorithm. But yeah, like, that's only a 6.56 there I'm looking at it. And like, that's just boring. Yeah, they had the right winners. Hope Edge Lee has more matches. I hope to keep them to 12 to 15 minutes. There wasn't 30 minutes of a match in this. And who was it? Mr. Snub said spots match. They were going moment to moment, spot to spot. Now, what did you think of the main event? I'm going to hit my vape, because the chat is on a bit of a delay. Okay. I thought this main event was one of Cody Rhodes' worst matches. And Drew McIntyre's, to be fair. Brian Maxwell's in. Jack Perry didn't wear enough hats. Give us more hats, Jack Perry. Give us more hats. Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre. I thought this was so heatless and dull. And like, what did we learn from Drew last year? He was exceptional at getting heat out of stuff. And Cody's been an exceptional babyface in generating sympathy. David Ayre says, I only watched the EO match on this card. David, you did the right thing. You did the right thing. That's what we all should have done. And Ronan says, Cody is so dull. He's so dull. What is going on? This guy, I said it after WrestleMania, and Shane disagreed with me. I think it was Shane anyway. Having seen it beat Cody the way that match happened is going to hurt Cody massively. And I think we're seeing the result of that now. Cody is a damaged babyface. He doesn't have the fan buy-in that he had 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. Drew McIntyre's in the Finn Balor position, just a name to put others over. Yep, Drew is done being dirty. Drew is being done dirty, yet Drew should have been pushed massively after the Punk stuff. They nixed that storyline where he was hunting the Bloodline Hunter. That could have been exceptional, except Roman didn't want to put Drew over, is what the talk is. Didn't want to work the program. Drew built that up brilliantly, and then it was just pushed to the side. Drew has been done dirty, as Brian Maxwell says there. That's patently obvious. But these guys got no juice out of this, and their leg selling was terrible. I was saying, like, the way Cody and at different times Drew sold their knees was some of the worst selling I've ever seen. If you saw guys doing that on an indie show, and I'm not talking about like a really good indie like OTT, DPW, Pro, Rev Pro, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about like go down to your local sports hall and see guys who are having their 7th match. If you saw them doing the knee selling that Cody and Drew did in this match, you would say these guys are trash. And we're getting it in the main event of the first ESPN pay-per-view with Cody Rhodes and Drew fucking McIntyre. Brian Maxwell says Cody needs a new haircut. Hose piss bleach has worn out. Hose piss. Brian Maxwell has such a way with words. Give me ROH heel Cody. That's the thing. He had the chance to do that in AEW as well, Brian, and he didn't. The black hair, go heel. I just don't think he'll go heel. He'll tease it, and he won't do it. I don't know if he'll get the fan rejection in WWE that he got in AEW, but there has been a noticeable cooling of Cody Rhodes, and it could get to a point of fan rejection. That is a possibility. And if that happens again in AEW or in WWE after it happened in AEW, that's a very tricky thing for him. He has to go heel at that point. And he can go face again in the future, but I don't know. Cody is not nowhere near. He was the biggest ticket seller in wrestling in 2024 after the title win. He was the biggest ticket seller in wrestling in 2023 on the house show circuit. Mystico has eclipsed him massively on that front. And the fans just aren't buying him at the moment. Stardust, I would love a Cody Rhodes Stardust run, but there's no way he's doing it. He takes himself too seriously now. And he took himself too seriously in AEW, and that's what backfired. There's no way he would do that. It would be cool. I'd love that. It would be very, very brave. It would get fans back on side, but he won't do it. He takes himself way too seriously. And that's why the AEW fans turned on him. And I think that's why the WWE fans, I don't think they'll turn on him to the same degree, but there will be a bit more of a noticeable rejection of him. I think Cody will be fine. The booking of him has been bad recently, but also he hasn't been on TV yet. Yeah, he needs to be on TV. You need to have him cutting his promos because that's how he gets people on side. He's a good promo. He's good, very good babyface promo. He has that thing where he can, even though I don't think he's earnest, he can appear earnest and people buy that. Very politician, very polished. and he does that quivering lip, almost crying thing that people seem to buy all the time. But yeah, like Cody, Shane has said, Cody Rhodes is the best babyface of his generation, and yeah, he's probably right, except for Mystico. But that's only something I've learned recently. I knew Mystico was great. I've recently learned how great a babyface he is when you see that crowd connection. But Cody needs something. Drew needs something. God, this company needs something. This company needs an injection of excitement, of unpredictability, of danger, of all the things, all the elements that contribute to a great story. They don't have any of it at the moment. And they're being led by Triple H, who just doesn't seem to have any interest. He's not at TV because he's off doing Logan Paul's podcast. He didn't go to the Triple H show in Vegas last Friday. The Triple A show, not Triple H. He didn't go to the Triple A show in Vegas last Friday when he was in town for the Canelo fight the next night. Because he was shown on screen with Stephanie at the Canelo Bud Crawford fight on Saturday night on Netflix. I think it's like 1 mile down the road on the Vegas Strip. The Triple A show was taking place 24 hours earlier and he wasn't there. Remember when Penta was hot stuff? Jesus, Brian, I do remember when Penta was hot stuff. Do you remember when Penta came over? And AEW was cold at the time. This was early in the year when the Death Rider stuff was not popping. And the company felt cold. And then, gradually Hangman and Ospreay and Swerve all got hot again and blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. But WWE was still hot. Kind of. Things were starting to go wrong. But we had the John Cena heel turn, the greatest heel turn of all time. What people said at the time. And Penta came over, and Penta was introduced impeccably on TV initially. And I remember the podcasters, and I'm a podcaster, what can I say? But I remember all these people saying, this is a nightmare for AEW because now all these other guys are going to want to come over because they're seeing how Penta's been presented and merch and blah, 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 blah. And Penta was presented excellently and he was hot. Every Penta segment was like super hot. And then what happens? Look at now. What's happening? He's just another mid-card guy and they're so bad. I want to just clear that there. They're so bad at building their mid-card at the moment. That wasn't the case 12, 18 months ago. Sami Zayn is getting like fan backlash. Sami fucking Zayn. Brian Maxwell says WWE gone to shite because Gable is gone. There might be correlation there. I don't know if it's causation. There might be correlation. Ronan says been downhill since the Netflix debut. I agree and disagree, Ronan. I think it's been downhill since Survivor Series last year. But the Netflix debut itself was kind of the epitomized. That was like the symbol of what was going to happen or where they were at the time. That really highlighted it because the Netflix debut was built up as a WrestleMania type thing, and it totally under-delivered. And people had been making excuses. Remember Survivor Series, people make excuses, but they have so much coming up, so they're kind of just like ticking along at the minute. And the latter half of last year, they're ticking along at the minute, they're just getting ready to do something mind-blowing at the Netflix debut and the build to WrestleMania. And then the Netflix debut came and it was dog shit, and people were like, oh, what? That was it? This is what we were waiting for? And then WrestleMania came and that under-delivered. I think it started at Survivor Series, but Netflix was when it really highlighted the issues in their storytelling and booking. Okay, guys, we've gone an hour and 44 minutes. We've blitzed our longest ever live stream of All Elite Morro. This might even be too many megabytes to upload to Spotify, but we'll see. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interaction. Brian, Ronan, David, Oshin, all the usuals in there. Mr. Snub, thank you for coming in, dropping comments. Thank you, Shane. Brian is in again. Thanks a million. A roundup of the usual legends, I would say. Jarbanahan popped in. Yeah, we had a great crew in here tonight. The two Brians. We had Brian and Brian. Brian Maxwell and Brian. Thanks to everyone for coming in, spending some time in here. Brian says, look at the cycle of nostalgia show that was NXT Homecoming. Horrific. The snake is eating itself. The snake is eating itself. It's just a snake with no leadership. This is like a Total Extreme Morro show. That's coming Wednesday. It's not 2 hours, don't worry. This wrestling, is it? Get up on the Ken McGuire by legend. Me and Ken shared the stage together in one of my favourite ever plays to act in, because we just didn't know our lines and we had the crack. And it worked. Total Extreme Morrow is coming Wednesday at 12:30. It's not 2 hours long. New episode up as well on creative wrestling finishes or best wrestling finishes. We couldn't set parameters. If you haven't seen it, it went up today because Shane is trying to counter program me. And OTT Insider's gone up with that prick Edward Stewart Tate and Shane O'Keefe. Very funny episode. Very funny episode. Ushing access to 2 hour TEM is getting unnecessary heat. I think so. I thought it was charming. I will try and keep it to like an hour and 10. I might sneak in an hour and 10. But thanks everyone. Thanks a million again, everyone. And let's catch up next week in the world of professional wrestling. All Elite Morro out.